Hi, and welcome to this webinar. My name is, Dimos Kirokitsos. You might know me from previous webinars or from the Airlock Academy. And with me is Dr. Martin Burkhardt. When I say with me, is in another room, working on his laptop and ready to answer questions if anything should pop up during this webinar. So don't hesitate to use the question tool or the chat. And remember that there is a private mode. So if you don't want to ask a question publicly, you can just ask us and we will answer accordingly. I will present you today in around 30 minutes the new Airlock Gateway 7.4. I saw that most of you will join also in 2 days on Thursday when we present the new Microgateway. I will have a few words at the end about the Microgateway, but we're going to present the Microgateway on Thursday. But today it's about the classical Airlock Gateway 7.4. Airlock Gateway, this is one of the first changes with the new version. You might know the Airlock Gateway from the previous name Airlock WAF. We always had two components, the Airlock WAF and the Airlock IAM. But out of those two components, there were three products generated: the Airlock WAF, the Airlock IAM, and the Airlock API Gateway. And this is where a problem started. When we talked about the functionality, those products, the market view of those products overlaps the actual components. So while the Airlock IAM, the component Airlock IAM, more or less does the same thing as the market or the product Airlock IAM, the Airlock Gateway component does much more things than the Airlock WAF market product we are selling. So what we did is, instead of continuing to call the component Airlock WAF, we changed the name of the component to Airlock Gateway. So there's a clear distinction between the WAF functionality, the API Gateway functionality, and the software component you're going to install. It's a small change. It gets a little bit to get used to, but shouldn't be the biggest change in the world. Actually, Martin is going to count how often I'm going to say Airlock WAF instead of Airlock Gateway, but I'm going to try to use the new name as much as possible. Let's talk about the features. One of the biggest features which came in with the new version, or the biggest features, is the possibility to have API keys and plans management, which means that the Airlock Gateway and the Airlock IAM can generate API keys for your clients in order, when they call your API, to send those keys with them. The Airlock Gateway will then redirect the according question to the Airlock IAM. The Airlock IAM will verify if it's the correct key, and if it's the correct key, if the plan is kept, and if everything is okay, the request will be forwarded to the according API. That way you can set up an API with different endpoints and set up that you can have access to certain endpoints unlimited, and to other endpoints like a few requests per second, and then you can choke it down and don't let this key access more of this endpoint. So you have two configuration parts. One configuration part will be inside the IAM, where you can define the tag clients, where you can define the plans, the according plans, define what those plans mean, and where you can generate those keys. So let me open up my Airlock IAM. I'm here within the admin app. If I go to this menu point here, tag clients, I can search for them. Of course, I've only set up one tag client. In your case, it would be many more. So I have this tag client here with multiple plans. So I have if I have the plan accounts has the right to access 10 requests per second, the devils can access 100 requests per second, and so on and so on. If I want to manage the plans, I can either go to this tab or I can click here on Manage, where I can then delete existing accounts, change existing accounts, change the name of the existing account, or add a plan. So I could define my new plan has a rate limit of 50 requests per second, for instance. Okay, this is how easy I can set up plans. And then I have API keys. Back here I can generate new API keys. I can change the validity. I can have a different description per API key, so I know which API keys does what thing. And I can copy those keys here. Those are actually JSON Web Tokens, so JOT or JOTIs, which then can be given to the technical client, which will insert them to their calls. And when the calls are sent, the WAF can control on the other side if the plan is needed or not. So there's here those things I showed you in the GUI of the Airlock IAM, and then on the WAF there's the control where I can define, for instance, any type of HE methods. If I access the payments, I need on one hand a strong authentication, and I have a restriction on the payments plan, so it will be checked against the payments plan. Or if I send a GET on accounts, a weak strong is enough, and I will have the plan accounts. And therefore, I have the according restriction for the accounts. If I try to do not a GET, but anything else on the accounts, I will need a stronger authentication. And there's also a public API, which has an unrestricted plan, for instance. So what you can do is you can go to your WAF inside the configuration center, and within the part where you define the roles, the access here, there's now a new part. I don't have any authentication here. I only have the plans back here, which I can define. So I tell my test servlet, which is a simple echo server, to let the GET through with the public plan. And if someone tries to send a post, there's a restriction of about a few requests per second, which means when I open up a REST tool, I'm using Postman, so I have a GUI which I can use. You see up here I have the API policy calls with the GET, and down here I have the post. So the GET shouldn't be restricted at all. If I start the GETs up here, you will see that it's possible to run those 10, I think it's 10 requests, rerun them, and there's always a 200 OK, which means that this request gets through, there is an answer there, everything works properly and fine, no restrictions there. So let me click a few times fast, so you see that within 10 seconds there will be no restrictions here. Okay. If I go down here to the post, there is the other restriction down there. I have a plan called restricted. I kept it quite simply. I will open up the posts. Run those calls. Of course, in the beginning, I will be above the limit, but as soon as I reach the limit, there will be too many requests and I will get blocked. And after a while, I'm able to send requests again. But as soon as I reach the limit again, I will be blocked again. So it's quite a simple thing to set this thing up. As I said, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them. Martin is answering the questions while I will keep going on with my presentation. Quite a simple thing to set up. Useful if you have APIs and want to restrict them to according a number of calls. The second thing, big thing, which we changed is we added tenants to the REST API. Up to now, it was like this, that you had the REST API and any admin who was allowed to access the REST API could do anything on the REST API. So you had to be admin, you had to get a key. As soon As you got the key, you could do anything on the WAF on any object. And now there was the introduction of tenants. Tenants means that you can define a tenant on the objects inside the WAF. So the virtual host, the mappings, the backend groups. And then you can go add an admin which has which belongs to a tenant. So this admin will be only able to see those objects when using the REST API. Generally here, this person will have read-write access. And then you can go on and restrict the read-write access. For instance, you can say, okay, this person has no write access at all. This person can only read any object through the REST API. That way you can have a virtual host belonging to one tenant and the according mappings and backend groups, and other virtual hosts might belong to another tenant. This also is quite simply set up by defining the tenant within the objects. Then go to the CLI user manager tool and generate administrators which have the right to access to access the objects held by a tenant. And then you can go and define, okay, one administrator with the key has only read access on certain things, one administrator has read-write access on other things. Let me go back to the WAF. So I will change the test servlet from the API access to the normal access. This is one thing I'll have to do. And I will show you inside here that I have defined the tenant for the virtual host and also my test servlet here, which is still the mapping in front of the Echo server, has the app admin tenant also. So if I restrict an administrator to have the app admin, it will be able to see those things. But if there will be other things with other tenants, I won't be able to see that. So let me write down a comment. Just that you see what this means. If I'm calling the test servlet, I will get this this echo page. Now I prepared some more scripts. I've set up a script sequence which will activate the maintenance page. Before I run this, I want to go to the command line and show you I created the user demos. I'm listing my user demos. I have the roles Airlock administrator, but more importantly, I have the tenant app admin, so I'm allowed to access those objects held by this tenant. We recommend that you disable the password so the user cannot use the GUI at all. He's only allowed to use the REST API. And back here, you see I can read and write paths, any path. It's a regex, so any path I can read and write. So it should be theoretically possible when I run this activation script. I'm loading configuration, I'm getting the test server mapping, I'm setting the maintenance page, and now I was able to set the maintenance page. And as soon as I change anything down here, so let's say I'm changing it to, I'm setting the user demos, the rights, I'm setting them to only be able to set to use /. So I'm not able to change, for instance, anything on the mapping. And I'm creating, of course, a new token. So I changed that. When I'm trying to deactivating the maintenance page, you will see I'm getting errors as soon as I'm trying to change the things on-site the maintenance page. So I'm not allowed to do this anymore. The maintenance page is still on. Gives you the possibility to have multiple virtual hosts. Of course, here I have only one virtual host, but for instance, if you have multiple clients, you would have a second virtual host with an according tenant, and they could use their tenant to change, for instance, the certificates on their virtual host by themselves and not go through you or through the main administrator. Then there's one other big change you might have seen already. We've moved our online documentation to docs.airlock.com. So instead of having them sent out with the product, you have a web page where you can log in and have a look at the newest versions of the Airlock Gateway, the Microgateway documentation, and IAM 7.2. By the way, those API keys functionalities are with the short-term service software IAM 7.2. They will, of course, also be included with the IAM 7.3, but we wanted to have them available for you. So we released a short-term software with 7.2. So, but I was talking about the manual, so you can either download it as an offline version, or you can click in here and you'll have the whole manual up here. You have the possibility to search for things. You have the possibility to browse through and have a look at whatever you're looking for. The good thing is that we can change, of course, the manual if you find something to be not specific enough or anything. We can change it on the fly, and you will have, of course, the newest documentation of the Airlock Gateway 7.4 right here. So you see this version was released on July 8th. If there would be anything we wanted to add, we would make a new version. It will still be Airlock Gateway 7.4. It will still be the correct version. And in the future, of course, you will be able to see the other versions of the Airlock Gateway and the according documentation. Gives us a much of possibilities for you. It's also nice to have the possibility to search through the documentation and not be dependent on the HTML page we were delivering up to now. Other changes, we added something in the Open API specification. So up to now it was only possible to validate requests against an Open API schema. From now on, it will be possible also to validate the responses. So your server will be sending responses. The WAF will verify that the response is really according to the Open API specification, and then it will go out. So you're making sure the backend does only things which are legally and within norms. The second, or now fourth big change is that you can actually define arbitrary header tokens for session tracking created by the WAF. So up to now, it was possible to have WAF session cookies. So the Airlock session cookies you might know already. It was possible to have the session tracking with the SSL session ID. And since I think 2 versions, it was possible to have a specific header. When this header was set from either the backend or the client, the WAF will be able to track the session according to this header. And now the WAF is also able to create its own header in order to have the session handling only with headers without being in need to have cookies. So session tracking by headers is even more enhanced now with Airlock Gateway 7.4. And we updated, of course, Elasticsearch and Kibana to version 7.6.2. So much about the gateway. Let's have a few more things I would like to talk about. Let's talk about the Microgateway. As I said, it's only a few sentences. We will have the big presentation in 2 days on Thursday. If you would like to join, you're welcome to be there too on Thursday. So the Microgateway, there was the big challenge of having the appliance, which includes many things like the Apache, getting the request, the filter engine, which will work on the request. We have the reporting underneath. We have a configuration center to be able to configure the whole thing. The operating system is part of the appliance. The networking is part of the appliance. We have a REST API. We have a Tomcat on there, and many things more which aren't in this graphic here. And it would be really messy to take all those things and deploy them together in a Docker container. This wouldn't be the meaning of Docker. Docker is usually a service-oriented container, bringing it up, having a short lifetime, and then taking it down again when it's not needed anymore. So what we did is we extracted the most important things, meaning the Apache being able to get the requests and the filter engine being able filtering the requests and put them into Docker processes in a Microgateway. Okay, so you will still have the deny rules, the open API specifications, so you're able to upload open API specifications and validate the requests going through the Microgateway. There's even a JOT validation and processing, JOT-T, JSON Web Tokens. So if you have JOTs sent with a request, the Microgateway will be able to have this simple verification, which you already know from the big gateway, which is inside the access token down here. You can specify which tokens you trust, and those will be let through. The whole thing is configured via DSL. It's also possible to take gateway mappings and put them underneath the Microgateway, and we'll be able to extract the configuration. As I said, we will talk about that more on Thursday. So we'll have half an hour only Microgateway, including some example, having a look at the DSL files and what's also possible. Of course, the deployment of the container is possible in a simple Docker environment, or you can use Kubernetes or OpenShift to orchestrate those Docker images. Okay, so much about the features. 2 or 3 more slides. One slide is about the where you can find this webinar. So we're creating a recording. As soon as we change this recording, you will be able, usually it takes about 1 or 2 days, you will be able to have a look at this recording from the past webinars down here. You will be able to have a look at the slides. The German versions are already online, so if you would like, or have a colleague who would like to have a look at it in German, you can go to TechZone-ch/webinars and then have a look at the older recordings. This one will be available in 2 or 3 days, depending on when we find time to do the changes and upload the film. And also down here is scheduled, but until it's officially released, we only schedule those webinars. But towards the end of October, we're planning to have a IM73 webinar, one in English, one in German again. The announcement will be, or the registration will be opened as soon as the official announcement comes out, and we know when the software is going to be released exactly. So it might be that we change this date, but for you, in order to have already keep this space free, the 22nd and 23rd of October will be the webinars of IM73 if everything goes according to plan. Next week, we will have an update training in English. The other one will be in October, where I will also include some features of the Airlock Gateway 7.4, of course, of the Airlock WAF 7.3. You're invited to join, so if you have a certification and just want to know or get to have a look at the new features, there's the one-day update trainings every 2 to 3 months, depending on what season it is. So you're invited to join there. Usually they're in English. If everyone speaks German, we can switch it to German, but officially they're in English, so everyone can join. For now, some trainings are held remotely. Some trainings are held, will be held in future. After August, will be held on premise again. You will see on the registration page if this training will be remotely or on premise. I'm guessing that the update trainings will be held remotely, so people can join in from everywhere and don't have to travel for one day to Zurich. Then we, talking about the academy, we changed the academy. So we had two trainings. If you remember, we had an expert and we had an engineer training for the Airlock WAF and an engineer training for the IAM and an expert training for the WAF. And we changed this to, instead of having 2 times 3 days, we moved all the parts which are in both trainings, like the roles, the authentication, session handling, things like this. We moved them into the first day. So you'll have 1 day of talking about the secure access hub, talking about session handling and roles, and then 2 days WAF and 2 days Airlock IAM, only talking about the features of the specific component. We're talking about the components here, not the products. So you will have a look at also things about the, of course, gateway, the API gateway, the Airlock WAF, and the Airlock IAM. And when you finish them, you have the certification of the connoisseur certification, which allows you to access the tax zone. And if you're allowed to create issues, you can create tickets for the support. In order to keep up with your certification, you can visit the 1 day update trainings. I was just presenting to you 1 day for WAF and 1 day for IAM. It's every 2 to 3 months again. And additionally to that, we removed the expert trainings, the 3-day expert trainings, and split everything up into 1 day modules. More or less 1 day modules for now. The plan is to have 1 day trainings. And when we talk about 1 day trainings, we're talking about having a focus on one feature on one subject. So there is a 1 day guru training for IAM, talking about OAuth and OpenID Connect. And then we will have exercises about OAuth and OpenID Connect. And we're planning right now to create training about the Microgateway, which will start from the fall. So it will be 1 day training Microgateway, where you get to know the Microgateway, will be able to write your own DSL files and have a look at how this thing works. Those are the 1 day guru trainings, which are offered separately from the normal trainings. Of course, you will need a certification, connoisseur certification, to be able to join those 1 day trainings. It's some kind of expert trainings, but broken down to 1 day. Okay, that's it from my side. 30 minutes, it's 28 minutes, that's not so bad. As I said, you can ask questions. I saw that there were already questions asked. I will join Martin answering those questions. If anything else pops up, don't hesitate, ask those questions. If not, or if you're satisfied, then thank you for joining. We will be online for the next few minutes, as long as we see that people will be online and ask questions, and then we'll shut down everything. As I said, you will find this the recording of this webinar in a few days, and of course, I think I saw most of you will join on Thursday, so I'm looking forward to present you the Microgateway on Thursday. Have a nice day. Enjoy your lunch. It's midday here in Switzerland, so enjoy your lunch and see you next time.